Hello, everyone. I am Tyler D. Wolf, and this is Wiki Read. And today I am going to be doing Pokemon. And, well, the very first thing that pops up when you decide to open up that Google Chrome and hit the word in, you get the Pokemon.com official website. You get the Reddit with 4.9 million followers. Oh, their little popular products from little plushies, gaming set, Legos of course. Can't forget the fucking Legos. Games. Got the official site. All right, and let's dive on in. Okay, so Pokemon is a Japanese media franchise consisting of video games, animated series, and films, a trading card game, and other related media. The franchise takes place in a shared universe in which humans coexist with anthropomorphous creatures. They got that in blue on here. You know, they deem that word or those two words together are very important. Said go down that little rabbit hole. Mm. A large variety of species which have special powers. A franchise's primary target audience is children aged 5 to 12, but it is known to attract people of all ages. Pokemon is estimated to be the world's highest grossing media franchise, with video games in particular being among the best selling. Created by Satoshi Tajiri. Original work Pocket Monsters Red and Pocket Monsters Green. The company and owner, the Pokemon Company, years 1996 to present. Print publication comics. See list of Pokemon manga, which I've got the second volume. You know, feel the cards. Espeon GameCube controller. Oh yeah, and the Monopoly game. Plus, I also got each one of the games for the DS too. From oh no, the Switch. The Switch I got them for. Yeah, I got at least each one from the series. Which I got Sword. I don't got the Platinum one. ZA. Legends Arceus, which popular one, in my opinion. Legends Arceus, you'll spend hours, days, even months trying to complete this shit. I mean, the Pokedex entries themselves catch fire with this, destroy them with this, use this move, find them over here, catch them at this time of the day. Like, oh, endless challenges. I mean, some people are those achievement hunters, which, oh my god, the dedication it takes. Alright, games. Traditional Pokemon trading card game. Animated series, which Pokemon 1997 to present. Video games. Pokemon video game series. Official website, which I have a little link down here to the hub. Alright, so the franchise originated as a pair of role playing games developed by Game Freak from an original concept by its founder Satoshi Tajiri, released on the Game Boy in February 27, 1996. The games became sleeper hits and were followed by manga series, a traditional card game, and anime series and films. From 1998 to 2000, Pokemon was exported to the rest of the world, creating an unprecedented global phenomena dubbed Pokemania. By 2002, the craze had ended, after which Pokemon became a fixture in popular culture, with new products released into this day. In 2016, the franchise spawned a second craze with the release of AR game Pokemon Go, developed by Niantic. Yeah, at the end of the day, I love doing voices, so I slipped some fun ones in there for y'all. But yeah, the Pokemon Go when that shit went crazy and everyone that had their phones out just like Not paying attention, taking down Pokestop. So, alright, so the franchise is managed by the Pokemon Company, TPC, which was established in 2000 by the joint owners of the franchise. An original video game series published Nintendo trading card game developer Creatures, the Game Freak. The three companies also own the anime series alongside TV Tokyo, Show Pro, JR Kikaku. Yeah, it looks like Kikaku. Kikaku and Pikachu Project, a joint venture between the Pokemon Company, TV Tokyo, and Showpro on the anime films. Since 2009, the Pokemon Company International (TPC), a subsidiary of TPC, has managed the franchise in all regions outside Asia. For the TPCI, the Pokemon Company International, they got the they got the international part as like a little eye to it, just that little daggone. Okay, name. The original full name of the franchise is Pocket Monsters, which has been commonly abbreviated to Pokemon since its launch. When the franchise was released internationally, the short form of the title was used with an acute accent, with an apostrophe there, over the E to aid in pronunciation. Pokemon refers to both the franchise itself and the anthropomorphous creatures. As a noun, it is identical in both the singular and plural, as is every individual species name. Thus, it's grammatically correct to say one Pokemon and many Pokemon as well. One Pikachu and many Pikachu. Okay, so general concept. Pokemon franchise takes place in a shared universe in which humans coexist with creatures known as Pokemon. The original pair games feature 151 Pokemon species, with new ones being added in subsequent games as of early 2026. 1,025 Pokemon species have been introduced. Most Pokemon are based on real life animals or mythical creatures from folklore. For example, Pikachu are a yellow mouse-like species with tails shaped as lightning bolts able to blast powerful electrical charges through the air. Each one of them gets their little poke baby. The player character takes the role of a Pokemon trainer. The trainer has three primary aims: travel and explore the Pokemon world, discover and catch a specimen of each Pokemon species in order to complete the Pokédex, and train a team of Pokemon and have them engage in battles. Most Pokemon can be caught with spherical devices known as Pokeballs. Once the opposed Pokemon is sufficiently weakened, the trainer throws the Pokeball against the Pokemon, which is then transformed into a form of energy and transported into the device. If the catch is successful, the Pokemon is tamed and under the trainer's command from then on. If the Pokeball is thrown again, the Pokemon rematerializes into its original state. The trainer's Pokemon can engage in battles against opposing Pokemon, including those in the wild or owned by other trainers. Because the franchise is aimed at children, these battles are never presented as overly violent and contain no blood or gore. Pokemon never die in battle, they faint upon being defeated and can then be rejuvenated at a Pokemon Center. Alright, the history origins. The main idea behind Pokemon was conceived by Satoshi Tajiri. Tajiri was born on August 28, 1965, and grew up in Machida, a suburb of Tokyo. As a child, he enjoyed discovering and catching insects and other small creatures in various ponds and fields that surrounded his town. During Japan's economic miracle, many cities, including Machida, were significantly expanded. As a consequence, Machida's nature was largely destroyed in his second year of junior high school. An arcade hall opened up in Tajiri's neighborhood, introducing him to video games. While studying electrical engineering at Tokyo College of Technology, Tajiri began publishing a doujinshi magazine. titled Game Freak. The title was inspired by the 1932 film Freaks, which Tajiri was fascinated with at the time. He self-published the first issue of the magazine in March 1983 at the age of 17. At the time, magazines specializing in video games did not exist yet in Japan, allowing Great Game Freak to fill a gap in the market. So dude literally created the gaming magazine market. Oh yeah, he, he, he filled the gap there. There was an opening. Sometime later, Tajiri was contacted by aspiring manga artist Ken Sugimori, who became Game Freak's illustrator. Game Freak folded in the late 1980s, by which point Tajiri had become a respected game journalist in Japan's fledgling video game industry, though his work Tajiri befriended Tenzuka Ishihara, Tenzuka Ishihara, a Japanese businessman who, among others, produced game-related shows for Fuji Television. Mm. Yeah, Japanese television getting their shit going. Tajiri Sugimori and a few other enthusiasts started an informal development team called Game Freak. Named after the magazine it grew out of. Over the next few years, they independently developed the puzzle game Quinty, working on it alongside school or their regular jobs. However, no one within the group knew how to make the game's music. After consulting all his contacts, Tajiri got in touch with Junichi Masuda, who became the group's composer. Quinty was finished in 1989 and published by Namco. Tajiri officially incorporated Game Freak Co. Ltd. Tajiri started to think of what was to become Pokémon while completing Quinty, and before he officially founded Game Freak around this time, Nintendo announced the upcoming release of the Game Boy, a handheld console that would revolutionize the gaming industry. Oh yeah, the big old gray brick. Tajiri learned that the device would have a link port with the corresponding game link cable. Two Game Boys could be linked together. Sometime later, Tajiri remembered an incident while playing Dragon Quest II, a role-playing game RPG for the Famicom NES. The game featured randomly appearing items of varying rarity, including an extremely rare item called Mysterious Hat. Tajiri did not encounter any, while Ken Sugimori, who was also playing the game, encountered two. Upon recalling this experience, Tajiri realized that the cable now made it possible to transfer things from one cartridge to another. He noted that until then, the Game Link cable was only used for competing, but not for something else. Combining this aspiration with his memories of catching insects and other small species, Tajiri's idea would eventually evolve into a virtual recreation of his boyhood experiences. In an attempt to regain the world that he had lost, he would later state the game represents the story of a boy's summer day. Tajiri and his Game Freak staff began pondering over a game centered on capturing creatures of differing rarities. Since the Game Boy is a portal device, these creatures could then be exchanged with other players in real life using the link cables. Yeah, isn't there also like a thing? Yeah, like catching bugs, training them, like, oh, this beetle's so much cooler than your moth. Oh no, my moth's badass is cooler than your beetle. I'm like trying to do some kind of weird trades like that. Yeah, isn't catching like a beetle's thing out over there? I feel like catching bugs for like most kids is the thing, but I'm not sure about trading them. But I do see the concept he's working with here. Okay, these creatures could be exchanged with other players in real life using the link cables. Once the player has caught a creature in game, it was to be stored in miniaturized form in a special capsule. The faucet of the game was inspired by Ultra 7, a Tokatsu show that Tajiri had enjoyed as a child. The series' titular character owns a number of capsules containing miniaturized kaiju monsters, which come out and return to their original sizes when the capsule is thrown into midair. Kaiju media in general were an important influence on Pokemon, as many Game Freak staff members had grown up with them. Other influences that have been cited by Tajiri include Gasifon, capsules with toy figures in them that can be drawn from vending machines. Everyone knows those. Collectible cards such as baseball cards, Ultraman cards, and Menko. The Final Fantasy Legend, 1989, the first RPG for the Game Boy, and Petting in Japan, with Tajiri noting that having Pokemon is similar to having pets. Tajiri initially named his project Capsule Monsters after what GF staff commonly shortened to Capumon. However, it later turned out that capsule monsters could not be trademarked, and it was subsequently decided to call them pocket monsters, which became Pokemon. Pocket monsters. Capmon. Capsule monsters. Capmon. Capimon. I don't know. Capimon having that for a name instead of Pokemon. Different timelines, people. Different universes. Could have been a thing. Alright, so in March 1989, ooh, excuse me there. In March 1989, Nintendo and Shigesato Ito, a co-founded Ape Incorporated, or Inc., a company meant to give outside talent a chance to pitch new, innovative games. At the time, Ape was housed in the same Kanata Kodojo office building as Nintendo in Tokyo. Ishihara, a friend of both Ito and Tajiri, was involved with Ape's management and would become its vice president in 1991. Tajiri's relationship with Ishihara prompted Tajiri to present his idea for Pocket Monsters at Ape's office. Presenting Tajiri's pitch was Takashi Kawakachu, who worked in Nintendo's General Affairs Department and was also a manager at Ape. Kawaguchi brought the idea to Nintendo President Hiroshi Hamawachi, who reportedly said, "This is it. This is the idea I've been waiting for." Let me do that properly. "This is it. This is the idea I've been waiting for. The development contract was signed at the beginning of 1990 with a planned delivery of the game in October. Tajiri directed the project, working under Ishihara. Ishihara was the producer. He managed the budget, staff, and work schedule, monitored the game's overall progress, and served as the liaison between Game Freak and Nintendo. Ishihara also contributed ideas to the development and helped the debugging. Sugimori was in charge of graphics and character design. Masuda created all music and sound effects and did part of the programming. The budget that Nintendo granted to Game Freak was low, thus Pocket Monsters was initially planned as a small compact game, but primarily around Tajiri's code idea of exchanging. However, as development progressed, GF's ideas and ambitions for Pokemon grew. They soon realized that the game they were beginning to envision would not be easy to make. Shock. Pocket Monsters was suspended indefinitely, and GF turned their focus on other titles. After the game's initial development phase in 1990 and 1991, the staff tinkered with it from time to time. As Sugimori put it, still development had mostly come to a halt until the summer of 1994, after the release of Pulseman, upon which Tajiri decided it was time to make a serious effort towards finishing Pocket Monsters. By this point, Game Freak's experience had grown considerably. Over the years, a number of new staff members had been added to the company. One of them was Atsuko Nishida, a graphic artist who created Pikachu, among others. Ishihara used his knowledge of card games to add more depth to the battle system and, among other things, suggested Pokemon types. Ishihara also came up with the idea of the Pokédex, a portable encyclopedia device which players can use to keep track of the Pokemon they caught. On the suggestion of Shigeru Miyamoto, it was decided to release two editions of the game, a red version and a green version. Otherwise identical, each had Pokemon not found in the other, encouraging players to socialize and trade to complete their collection. Who literally set that in mind. I was like, you know what? Two different games. You can catch different ones on here. You want them? Get out there, find them, socialize. Oh, Duke was already working on another level, just trying to get humans to interact with each other. Ishihara, Ishihara aspired to create video games of his own. As Pocket Monsters Red and Green were nearing completion, Ishihara founded Creatures Inc. on November 8th, 1995. Co-ownership of the Pokemon property, which Ishihara helped create, was subsequently assigned to Creatures. This resulted in Pokemon having three legal owners: Game Freak, the main developer; Creatures, representing producer Ishihara; and Nintendo, the publisher. Annie Allison wrote that Nintendo also bought the property after Red and Green were finished. Journalist Kenji Hakiyama, Hakiyama noted that the ownership structure of Pokemon is uncommon. He wrote that Pokemon is probably the only property in the world today for which the original rights are not concentrated in a single company like the Walt Disney Company does with their IPs. Tajiri and Ishihara did consider merging Game Freak and Creatures at one point. However, Tajiri decided against it because he feared it would erase what he had built up since he was a teenager. I felt threatened. I felt threatened by the idea of changing how Game Freak was operating and starting back over with Mr. Ishihara. He said, "It was an identity problem. If Game Freak ceased to exist, then so would I." Tajiri noted that since Game Freak and Creatures both focus on Pokemon, it sometimes felt like different departments than different companies. 1996 to 1998, rise in Japan. Korokoro manga Mew Lottery. After finally being published in December 1995, Pocket Monsters Red and Green were released on February 27, 1996. Nintendo had no high expectations of the game, and media largely ignored them. By 1996, the 7-year-old Game Boy console was considered dated and near the end of its life cycle. On the other hand, new Game Boys continued to be manufactured and sold. The console was widespread and, due to its age, affordable to children. Two media channels that would play important roles in the Pokemon franchise were the Korokoro comic, released monthly, and its sister magazine, Basatsu Korokoro comic, released bi-monthly. Both manga magazines were published by Shogakukan, a longtime business partner of Nintendo, and have featured manga based on Nintendo properties. Is Super Mario, Kirby of the Stars, and Donkey Kong. At the time of the Pokemon's release, the main Korokoro magazine was read by 1 or 4 elementary school students. Korokoro's deputy editor-in-chief was Mazuka Kubo. On Ishihara's suggestion, Kubo commissioned the creation of a manga adaptation written and illustrated by Kosaku Anakubo Shogakukan, which frequently surveys their target groups, determined that the Pocket Monsters manga was well received. To further promote Red and Green, the May issue of Korokoro, released on February 15, 1996, announced the legendary Pokemon offer centered around a mysterious secret Pokemon called Mew. Mew was a last minute addition to Red and Green. It is unobtainable on the games through usual means and was intended to be used at a later point in some post launch activity. To participate in the promotion, Koro readers had to send in a postcard, and from the entrants, 20 were selected at random. The winners then had to send in their cartridge so that Mew could be uploaded onto it. The lottery was a success and increased word of mouth. By September, sales of Red and Green had surpassed 1 million units. Don't talk about creating a market. Alright, the trading card game. Ba, ba, ba. The trading card game was one of the first collectible card games, CCGs, developed in Japan. Its creation was influenced by Magic the Gathering, the first CCG in history. Indeed, the Pokemon trading card game can be considered a simplified version of Magic. First released in the United States in 1993, Magic had gained popularity not just in North America and Europe, but also in Asia. Ishihara was fond of playing cards and had contributed to the development of at least three simple card games designed by Shigezo Ito and released through Ape Inc. At the time, Ishihara was particularly interested in Magic the Gathering. While developing the Pokemon RPG, he realized that the concept behind it could be adapted into a Magic-like CCG. The Pokemon trading card game was designed by Ishihara, Akiko Miura, Koichi Oyama, and Takamui Akabane. All were former staff members of Ape and had previously worked on Earthbound, 1994. Miura was the game's main designer, Oyama was its art director, and Akabane was one of its chief debuggers. While card games have a long history in Japan, a collectible card game was a relatively new concept there. Ooh, and at the time, not widely known. Because of this, Ishihara had difficulties finding distributors. Yeah, no one knows what the fuck you're trying to peddle as. What is this? You're crazy, man. You're crazy. They agreed to have the cards manufactured. Yeah, sometime in 1995, Ishihara pitched the card game to Nintendo. They agreed to have the cards manufactured, subcontracting an unidentified printing company. Ooh. However, Nintendo did not want the hassle of having to develop a distribution system from the group up, i.e., finding retailers willing to sell a CCG. Ishihara was then contacted by Satoshi Kayama, director of a small firm called Media Factory. Like Ishihara, Kayama was a fan of card games. He felt the CCG would soon rise to prominence in Japan. Don't mad his bat and won, and had been gathering information on the possibility of developing such a game in some form. Dude was already in the works. He's like, you know what? I'm working on something like this now that you bring it up. When Kayama heard that Creatures had developed a CCG, he contacted Ishihara and offered to distribute it. Signing the contract near the end of 1995, the first Pokemon card set was released on October 20th, 1996. Despite being ignored by the media, except for Koro, the cards became an instant success upon release. Yeah, if 1 out of 4 elementary school kids are already reading that and you release and do a drop like that, is like, I use this magazine, drop it that way. Fucking done. Easy distribution. Okay, anime production and premiere. By August 1996, Kubo had become convinced of Pokemon's potential and believed Shokakuna should create an anime adaptation. Nintendo felt reluctant, believing that the property had developed enough as it had over the course of 6 months. At that time, they did not consider such a significant expansion to be necessary. Nintendo also noted that if the anime would flop, it would negatively affect future Pokemon games. Ishihara initially opposed the idea because he thought would overly hasten the consumption of the property. He feared that if the series would end, people would assume that Pokemon has ended and move on to the next thing. At the time, creatures in Game Freak were planning this up. The sequels to Red and Green, Pokemon Gold and Silver, and Hishihara did not want the anime to end before they could release their new games. Kubo was initially able to resolve the concerns of all parties involved. An important aspect of Kubo's bargaining power was the ongoing Mini F Mini 4WD craze and its accompanying hit series Bakuso Koida Let's and Go. Okay? Kubo had an important role in the creation of both, which impressed the stakeholders. To appease Ishihara, Kubo promised him that the anime would last for at least a year and a half. This was unusually long for a debuting anime and required a big investment. Kubo's proposal for Pocket Monsters was officially approved on September 26, 1996. For Nintendo of Japan, it was the first time they licensed a TV series. Kubo assigned independent producer Koichi Yoshikawa to lead the project. Shogakukan Productions, commonly called Shopro, was Shogakukan's production company. The animation company they commissioned was OLM Inc., Oriental Light and Magic. On Kubo's suggestion, Kunihiko Yuyama, one of OLM's founding members, became the anime's director. Showpro assembled a team of 5 writers plus 2 supporting writers. All key people involved with the production of Pokemon were well experienced and had proven track records with Japan's anime industry. Yoshikawa felt that the team got lucky. The probability of so many great people coming together at the same time is very low, he said. Per Tajiri's explicit condition, every anime team member had to play the game extensively, including the illustrators and voice actors. The anime staff unanimously agreed that the game was interesting and felt connected with each other through the world of Pokemon, feeling positively challenged to make an anime that would match the game's quality. Ooh, he had each one of them go through and play and check that shit out. Like, here you go, play it, experience it. Give me some notes. No, I really want you to channel the game through. Feel it. Okay. A production council was formed to produce the anime. Different people appeared at different meetings, but 4 individuals usually present were Ichihara of Creatures, Sugiyamura of Game Freak, Yoyama of OLM, and independent producer Yoshikawa. Yoshikawa had the final say. The council decided on the anime's worldview, characters, general storyline, and various important details. The early meetings, which were also attended by Tajiri, usually started with a Q&A in which Tajiri and Ishihara were asked about the Pokemon universe. The council was careful to have the anime be in concordance with the video game. Inevitably, there had to be differences between the two, but all agreed that the overall worldview envisioned by Tajiri should not be distributed. At the start of the video game, the player had to choose one of 3 starting Pokemon. Fushi Fushigdan, yeah, Fushigdani, Hitokage, or Zenigame, Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle. The council didn't want to unfairly pauperize any of them and wanted the protagonists to start out with a different Pokemon. Alright. You get anyone that sees it, put down in the comment. Who are your starters? I know for me, I I typically did go Charizard, but when I would go back and play the game, I would choose different ones. Like I remember the red and green one going with Bulbasaur. one time just because I'm like, oh, first two gems, I'm just going to breeze right through them with this. I'll worry about the other shit. Or you could get the Charmander and just find yourself a Mengi and just have it learn the low kick. Once you get that, just sweep that first gem. That was my trick. Or at least that was, my approach to it. Okay, different angels. Asked about the Pokemon universe. The council was careful to have the anime be in accordance with the game. Okay, yet they unanimously decided that a Pikachu should be one of the Pokemon's central icons. Pokemon Special Edition Yellow had that. You got to have Pikachu and then catch the other three too. Later, right there around Lieutenant Sarge and Misty. Because I know you can get like the Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle like in those in between like those areas, and I'm trying to go to the little cave where you had to have Flash. Okay, Pikachu should be one of Pokemon's central icons. They expected Pikachu to appeal both boys and girls as well as their mothers. This would expand the franchise's audience, which was considered a core objective of the anime. I know at one time, if I'm remembering it correctly, that they were considering having Clefairy as like the main the main franchise icon instead of Pikachu, or having them right there along, which you can go through with the pictures and see like the Clefairy and Pikachu are constantly like drawn together, like in the beginning, like they were really trying to figure out like which one are we gonna go with. They expected Pikachu to go both good. Yeah, during the council's first meeting, Yoshikawa brought up the issue on whether the Pokemon in the anime could talk, and if not, how could they communicate? In the video games, they each had a specific cry. In Alekubo's Korokoro manga, they could speak. At first, the council believed there should be a mixture of Pokemon that could talk and some that could not. However, this idea was eventually discarded. The Pokemon had to make a specific cry. The council agreed that Pokemon were like animals, and while they and humans should be able to understand each other, in the series, they could not speak each other's language. It was decided that Pikachu would repeatedly say its own name in various intonations. The role Pikachu was given to Iku Otani. During tryouts, Yoyama had Otani voice Pikachu in normal Japanese as well in Pikachu talk, in which it only said the syllables of its name. Yoyama realized that even in the later style of limited communication, Otani was experienced enough to still convey the messages and emotions needed. Pocket Monsters premiered on April 1st, 1997. By November, it had become the highest rated program on TV Tokyo. Dino Senshi Porygon Incident. Oh yeah, the flashing light seizures. In the evening of December 16th, 1997, the Pokemon franchise was hit by a crisis related to the broadcast of the anime's 38th episode, Dino Senshi Porygon, Computer Warrior Porygon. It was watched by approximately 4.6 million households. In the episode, the cast is transported into a virtual world accompanied by a Porygon, an artificially made Pokemon. While flying through cyberspace, they're attacked by an antivirus program, which mistakes them for viruses, shooting vaccine missiles, and then resulting in explosions of bright, rapidly swapping red and blue flashes. The intense stimuli brought about by the episode triggered a variety of adverse health effects in more than 10,000 viewers, primarily irritated eyes, headaches, dizziness, and nausea. A small part suffered a photosensitive epileptic seizure, manifested in loss of consciousness, anger, convulsions. Hundreds of children were brought to hospitals, although some had recovered enough upon arrival and did not need to be hospitalized. No one died. Broadcasting of Pokemon resulted, and new guidelines were implemented to help prevent similar events from happening. With the show on hiatus, Show Pro and OLM worked on a future Pokemon film. By the time the incident occurred, its script was already written and storyboards were being made. In mid January, the staff resumed creating new episodes. The anime series returned on April 16th, 1998. The film, titled Pocket Monsters the Movie Mewtwo Strikes Back, Pokemon the first movie, premiered on July 18th, 1998, becoming the fourth highest grossing film of the year in Japan. Hmm, I got it there. Ultimately, the incident did not damage the Pokemon franchise. It in fact grew further during and after the anime's hiatus. While video rental tapes were removed from shelves, all the Pokemon products continued to be sold as usual, and customer demand for them remained high. Helping matters was a general understanding among businesses that the anime was not cancelled, but rather suspended, and many executives correctly expected the show to be resumed after precautions had been taken. Supermarkets and other distribution outlets responded calmly to the crisis, did not remove Pokemon products from their sales floors. 1998 to 2000, international expansion. North America. When we started this project in Japan, one of the first things I was told was that this kind of thing would never appeal to American audiences. They said, because the characters are in a very Japanese style, you cannot sell them to Americans. So, from the very beginning, I never thought they would be an English version. Now it's just as popular in the US as in Japan. And I realized that we shouldn't always believe the opinions of conservative marketers. Shigeru Miyamoto, August 1999. Alright, possibly the first show to show interest in a North American launch Pokemon was Minoru Arakawa, founder and then president of Nintendo of America. Yeah, no way. Nowhere. Arakawa visited Japan to participate in Shosanaka in 1996, held 22nd to the 24th of November. It was around this time when he first played one of the three Pokemon titles released at the time. He thought the games were promising, but Nintendo of Japan and No Road J had no plans at the time to release them from elsewhere. He returned to America with a few cartridges, tested the game on his employees. They did not believe it would work in the US. At the time, role-playing games, RPGs, were not very popular outside of Japan, and in no way executives believed that American children did not have the attention span for such a complex title. Oh, they shooting shade, motherfucker. Americans were said to be more interested in sport and action-oriented games. No shock with fucking, Rambo, Terminator, all that shit come out. They're like, action. Okay, America. Yeah. Japanese people, by contrast, were alleged to care more about characters and plot. Up to that point, few Japanese properties had been successfully mainstreamed in the US, and if they were, it was alleged to be on account of having been properly Americanized. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was considered a prime example of this. Visually, Pokemon was believed to be too kawaii or cute. They could just market it to girls or some shit. If they wanted to, if they're like, it's too cute, well, we can still market it, right? Just change it. It was assumed that Pokemon could not succeed on cute alone, it must also be cool. Okay, now they got some dedication. In an effort to enhance the franchise's coolness, NOA considered a graphic redesign and contracted a few external artists to create some test designs for the American market. The mock-ups they proposed included graffiti-style drawings, beefed up and more muscular-looking Pokemon, and a new Pikachu that looked like a tiger with huge breasts. Arakawa concluded that it didn't work, and by that time the anime had begun its production in Japan, leading NOA to conclude it was too late for a graphic revamp anyway. Pivotal importance to Pokemon's global expansion was Alfred R. Kane, a CEO of US based 4Kids Entertainment, NOA's licensing agent since 1987. Convinced of the franchise potential, Khan agreed to invest an undisclosed sum in return for both the anime and licensing rights. Pokemon became one of the first Japanese media franchises in which both the localization of the anime and the licensing of merchandise was handled by a single company, as well as a not Japanese company. Khan suggested to use the short version of the name Pokemon, adding an acute accent over the E to assist with pronunciation and give it a little flair. NOJ President Hiroshi Yamauchi officially approved the project in late November and subsequently announced it at Space World in 1997. However, 3 weeks later, the Denosenshi Porygon incident happened, which Kupo felt made even more people resistant to the idea of an overseas introduction. Are you kidding? That just means we want it more. Like, wait a minute. This gives you seizures? Dude, I need to check this shit out. I want to see for myself what happens. It's just gonna fucking explode more over here. They're like, that fucking killed someone? Bullshit. Let me try. Come on. Market research turned back negative. American kids reportedly did not like Pokemon. Arakawa ignored the study and convinced of the franchise potential. Allocated an enormous budget to Pokemon's launch. The exact amount was not disclosed, but was reportedly equal to more than $50 million, ZE 98.76 million in 2025. Approximately the same amount as the launch budget of the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1985. Arakawa admitted that it was quite a bit of money, but in a way, had been doing well for several years, so we had a lot of money to spare. He opinioned that if Pokemon would be as successful in the US as it had been in Japan, an investment of one would turn into 100. NOA and 4Kids proceeded to plan an all-out effort to repeat the phenomenon in the Western world. The localization of the Pokemon anime was done by 4Kids and directed by Norman J. Grossfeld. Grossfeld strongly believed that the anime should be Americanized. At NatPE 1998, he asked ShowPro for a kind of carte blanche to let me change the show as I think would work for this market. To which ShowPro agreed. However, no national TV station was interested in buying the anime or franchising its localization. Khan then decided to self-finance Pokemon's production costs, despite realizing this could be very well bring down for kids if the show would fail. According to Khan, they spend a fortune on the localization to have it broadcast in syndication. 4Kids offered the show for free to local TV stations across the country in exchange for a portion of the advertising revenue. NOA assisted persuading dozens of stations to carry the series by offering to buy some of their advertising space, spending a total of $5 million or $9.88 million in 2025. Despite all this, most broadcasters were still reluctant to carry Pokemon, while Grossfeld experienced difficulties getting through their perceived notions of the snobbery for Western production animation over something from Asia. At the time, anime had not yet found mainstream popularity in the West. Contemporary news reports cited Sailor Moon as an example of an anime that had failed to catch on with American youth. Still, with NOA's help, 4Kids ultimately succeeded in contacting 112 broadcasters for Pokemon, reaching about 85 to 90% of television households. However, many broadcasters gave it off-peak time slots with starting times like 6 or 6:30 prior to the late 1990s. This was the case for many anime in the US. Goswell came up with the advertising slogan, "Gotta catch 'em all," as the English equivalent to the Japanese "Geto desu." Ooh, shit. The phrase miraculously managed to gain approval the the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, you know, CIA approved Wiki, that's what I'm reading off of, which normally prohibits the use of injunctions and ads directed at children. E.g., you must buy this. While the tagline made sound commanding, the FCC reasoned that the act of catching is at the core of Pokemon's play, therefore the phrase was allowed. The series theme song was written by John Loeffler and John Siegler and performed by Jason Page. The Pokemon anime was first broadcast on September 7th, 1998. Pokemon Red version and Blue version were released 3 weeks later on September 28th, 1998. To localize the card game, Nintendo contacted Wizards of the Coast, the creator of Magic the Gathering. The Pokemon trading card game was officially launched nationwide on January 9th, 1999, although pre-sold in select stores in December. Coinciding with the North American launch of Pokemon was the release of the Game Boy Color on November 23rd, 1998. 1999 to 2000, Pokemania. In North America, the debut Pokemon franchise quickly rose to success. By December 1998, the Pokemon anime had become the highest rated syndicated Pokemon children's show during the weekdays. This attracted the attention of two media companies, Warner Brothers, co-owner of the WB channel, and Saban Entertainment, Fox Family Worldwide, owner of the Fox Kids channel. A bidding war ensued between the parties, which was won by Warner Brothers. On February 13th, 1999, Pokemon launched on Kids WB national television block. The debuted episode became the most watched premiere in Kids WB history, fucking breaking numbers and records. By April 1999, there was a general consensus in the US that Pokemon had become a phenomenon and the newest children's fad. By some, the fad was referred to as Pokemania, including journalists of Time and US Today. In the US, severe scarcity occurred of Pokemon goods, especially cars, causing companies to miss profits. A Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel article published on August 3rd, 1999, cited a Toys R Us manager as saying that a supply of 600 booster packs would last 24 hours. The CEO of one card distributor stated that there were thousands of boxes behind on orders. In the same article, a Wizards spokesman stated that more employees and printers had been hired to increase card production. However, near the end of the month, a different Wizards spokeswoman told the Washington Post that they had exhausted most of the card capacity of the U.S. Similarly, USA Today reported in November 1999 that factories making Hasbro's Pokemon toys had expanded production by 20 times, but demand still exceeded supply. 20 new increased production 20-fold, and it's still not enough. In part due to the Pokemon craze, Nintendo saw a 250% increase in profits in 1999 compared to the previous year, reaching a 6-year high. The Pokemon franchise accounted for over 30% of Nintendo's revenue that year. Pokemon's popularity also caused a sharp increase in sales of the Game Boy line. The official windfalls came at a time when Nintendo lost dominance in the home console market, with the Nintendo 64 being outsold by Sony's PlayStation. The global success of Pokemon compensated this loss somewhat. Scholars David Buckingham and Julian Severing Green went even further, during in 2004. While Nintendo is now among Japan's most profitable corporations, it could be argued that the company would have struggled to survive without Pokemon. For kids, initially a little-known firm, expanded 30 times in revenues and was named the fastest-growing company in America in the September 4th, 2000 issue of Fortune magazine, many businesses that timely obtained a Pokemon license reaped considerable profits. In the summer of 1999, a massive run on stocks of publicly traded Pokemon licenses caused their value to increase dramatically. However, by November, most investors were shortening their shares, realizing that Pokemon was a fad that would peak and fall at some point. Investors were bearish about its prospects. Pokemon the first movie premiered in North America on November 12th, 1999, and in Europe the following year. Despite being negatively received by many Western critics, it became one of the most successful Japanese animated films of all time. In the US, November 1999 was estimated to have been the peak of Pokemania. Supporting the American release of the first movie was a promotional action with Burger King, one of the largest in history of the fast food industry. The success of the promotion resulted in supply issues. Restaurants often ran out of Pokemon toys to include with their meals. On December 27th, Burger King recalled its Pokeball toys after a 13-month-old girl died suffocating on one. Okay, I remember going to Burger King as a kid, getting those little Pokeballs with the little attachment ring onto it so you could clip it on your belt with the plushie in there. Then I also remember they had like the birds that had like a little stand in there that you could press it down. I remember having a Moltres one, and when you press it, it would do its cry like. Okay, Pokemon Gold and Silver, the successors to Red, Green, Blue, were released in North America on October 15th, 2000. In Europe, they were released on April 6th, 2001. Hmm. On April 23rd, 1998, Pokemon Center Co., Ltd. was founded as a joint venture by Nintendo, Creatures, and Game Freak. It was initially formed for the management of specialized merchandise stores called Pokemon Centers, of which the first location opened in Nihonbashi, Tokyo on July 18th, 1998. Throughout the years, multiple Japanese Pokemon centers would open and close. As of April 2026, a total of 25 Pokemon merchandise shops exist in Japan. An American Pokemon Center also exists in New York City from 2001 to 2005. It was then remodeled into Nintendo Road, later renamed Nintendo New York. Okay, I wouldn't mind getting out there. Uh, Suzanaki Ishihara began setting out a number of long-term goals for the Pokemon franchise, which included releasing a movie every year. As part of Ishihara's plan, the Pokemon Center Co. Ltd. was reformatted into the Pokemon Company (TPC) and officially renamed in October 2000. The goal of TPC is to centralize and streamline the global management of Pokemon. In February 2001, Pokemon USA was established, an affiliated firm of the Pokemon Company. Alright, so I gotta check this shit here real quick. Alright, so 2001 to 2006, end of the craze. In North America, Pokemania peaked in 1999, slowing down throughout the next year. On April 29, 2000, the anime was bumped off Kids WB's #1 spot after holding it for 54 weeks. That's a fucking straight year. Or a little over 52 weeks in a year. Yeah, I think it's 52 weeks in a year, so a little over a year. Around the same time, Pokemon was surpassed at Fox Kids by its rival, Digimon. In Europe, the craze peaked in 2000. On January 20th, 2001, the New York Times reported that Pokemon trading card market had collapsed in the US. A June 2001 survey in the United Kingdom confirmed that Pokemon's popularity was waning there. Joseph Tobin wrote, by the summer of 2001, Pokemon shelf space in Japanese and US toy stores was but a fraction of what it enjoyed in the fall of 1999. By the end of 2001, Pokemania was fading globally, and by 2002, the fad was largely over. From 2000 to 2002, Game Freak developed Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, the successor to Gold and Silver for the newly released Game Boy Advance. Masuda was also appointed to assistant director during Gold and Silver, was promoted to director for Ruby and Sapphire, with Tajiri making himself executive director. In October 2001, Kids Entertainment signed a new contract with Pokemon USA, PUSA, continuing to serve as Pokemon's exclusive licensing agent and anime localizer. On December 23rd, 2005, it was announced that the agreement would not be renewed and would expire on December 31st, with PUSA moving all licensing in-house. The localization of the anime would be done by PUSA in cooperation with TAG Productions. PUSA proceeded to replace almost all of the original English voice actors who were still under contract with 4Kids. This decision raised the ire of fans and the actors themselves, according to Stuart Zagnett, who voiced Professor Bope. The recasting was done to cut back on costs. In March 2003, Pokemon UK was established in London as a British representative of the Pokemon Company. Alright, people, that is the end of part one of Wiki Read Pokemon. I know there's a lot going on with the series. It's bad a bit with uploading, going through things, trying to get back into swing of things. Really trying to record, upload more. Check me out over there on Instagram, Tyler D. Wolf, doing comedy. Over there on Snapchat. Let's see, TikTok, Breakfast Buddy, Tyler D. Wolf over there as well. Trying to do shorts, comedy. All likes, comments, subscribing. Every little bit helps try to grow. Since, my goal is to do what I love and, not destroy my legs anymore. Just walking places. Just constantly. Time to put them to rest. Just have fun and at least have some kind of easiness. Alright, thank you all for watching.